Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshop, where we get together in the middle of the week to learn more about technology. One of the things that we use a lot nowadays are smartphones. And there's a lot to learn about these little digital devices that we talk. We're excited to have back with us from the snowy DC area, John Krout, who's going to share with us today about hard falls and dealing with our smartphones and our safety. So John, who doesn't need any introduction more than he's back with us again. Luckily, they didn't have a big snowstorm and power outages. So John, take things over for us.
Well, thank you for that, John. Actually, we're going to talk about smart watches and hard fall detection.
My mistake.
And, I hope that doesn't disappoint anybody in the audience. Although at the end, I do comment briefly on using smartphones to do the same thing. So let me go ahead and start sharing. First of all, I have to make sure the slideshow is running. And it is now. And then I have to share it with you all. And fortunately, John has long ago at the beginning of the meeting arranged for me to be able to do that. First slide you're going to see for a change is white. There you go. And then we go on to the first. Well, that wasn't quite what I intended, but I have to adjust a couple of things. I have to hide the video panel, which is now gone, and I have to hide the floating meeting controls there. So just a reminder, I'm going to go back to that slide. Sorry, the computer got ahead of me. Let's see if I can go back. No, it's not going to let me go back. That yellow slide was a reminder that you can use your computer to save any slide that I show or any presenter shows during a Zoom meeting. And there are easy keystroke methods in Macintosh, Windows, and Android, and Apple phones for saving any slide as an image, just like a photograph, so that you can review it later. This is our topic for today, as I mentioned, smartwatches and hard fall detection. And this became an issue for me when I bought my first major brand of smartwatch, and you're going to hear that story today. We'll start, though, by talking about what a hard fall is and how does a watch detect a hard fall. It turned out after I got my watch, I had several hard fall detections by the watch, which was in every case incorrect, a false report. That's called a false positive. We're going to talk about those phrases a little bit later and what they mean. What the web reveals about hard fall reports for both Apple and Samsung smartwatches, those are very popular brands, and ways to prevent hard fall detection while sleeping. And that became very important to me, as you will find out. And although much of this is a complaint about the smartwatch, I want to emphasize up front, and I will say it again at the end, I really like my smartwatch. I am going to explain my experience with that hard fall detection feature, and you will understand why the problems with that are so aggravating. But I did find a useful way to block its aggravating behavior, and I will show that with you, share that with you. It has worked for me now for almost a solid year. And I think that the Samsung Galaxy Smartwatch 4 that I bought has been useful and even sometimes delightful. The first thing you need to know about a smartwatch is that it is always closely coupled to your smartphone. The two work together. And one of the implications of that is that if you do not have a smartphone, you're not going to be able to use a smartwatch. The two communicate via Bluetooth, An app on the smartphone manages many aspects of smartwatch behavior. And that's partly because the number of pixels on the smartphone is so much less than, on the smartwatch is so much less than on the smartphone. So it makes it easier to run an app that lets you browse the sorts of things that you want to customize about the smartwatch behavior. A smartwatch uses lithium-ion batteries. Now, that has the same risks of battery damage during charging and discharging that is true on almost any other digital portable. So smartphones, tablets, even laptops, and for that matter, even lithium-ion batteries in electric vehicles and pluggable hybrid electric vehicles. They all have the same risk of battery damage during charging and discharging. The watch battery is smaller, so the battery damage actually can happen more rapidly on a smartwatch. One thing I found out when I first presented this for my local user group is that not everybody who owns a smartwatch wears it while asleep. I do, and one of the reasons is the smartwatch has health monitoring features. One of those features is a sleep monitor, so I can figure out how much or how little I sleep at night. And maybe that data will help me figure out how to enjoy more sleep at night and need less nap time during the day. Sounds like a senior, doesn't it? Yeah, I am. Maybe I'm old enough that sufficient sleep overnight is no longer going to be possible for me. I don't know. But in any event, that's why I wear the smartwatch at night. Now, let's talk about that first agenda item. What is a hard fall? Probably you have a pretty good sense of this in any event. Most of us have an intuitive idea that a hard fall is hard enough to involve a significant risk of injury or other need for assistance. A smartwatch contains a small device within a chip called an accelerometer, and that device detects movement in any direction, specifically a downward movement sudden, followed by a sudden halt of that downward movement. And that is broadly interpreted by the smartwatch as a hard fall. Now, I live in Arlington County, Virginia, which is, if you looked outside today, you'd say, gosh, it looks like a frozen Arctic wasteland. Not always that way. Arlington County Emergency Services receives so many accidental 911 pocket dials that they send back to the caller a text asking if the emergency is real or not. And you might wonder, how did I find that out? I found that out personally because of a pocket dial by my phone. And yes, their 911 service sent me a text back, and I said, nope, no problem here. That was a pocket dial. Hard falls, in one sense, have long been a cultural meme in the United States because of a TV ad campaign, which made this phrase very familiar. I've fallen and I can't get up. Remember that ad? It was for an early device that could call for help that you would carry with you. Well, nowadays our smartwatches and smartphones provide that same capability. And major brands of smartwatches specifically are now configured with the capability to detect hard fall detection or detect hard falls and optionally alert people about it. And because they are tied into a smartphone, that allows the smartwatch to trigger the smartphone to call 911. And I found out that it also triggers the smartphone to send a text to the folks identified in your contacts as emergency contacts. So here's the first time. Well, first of all, let's talk about how I acquired it. On Black Friday of 2023, which is a little more than a year ago, the refurb Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 fell to a price that was a real sweet spot, just a tad over $100. And I ordered the watch that day. It showed up the next day, Saturday. And in the box, there was the watch, two plastic watch bands, and a tiny USB inductive charger disc. I ordered screen protectors, and I later ordered a stretchable watch band that I've used ever since. I vastly prefer that to the plastic watch bands that were provided with the product. Now, there is an app on my phone called the Galaxy Wearable app, and it specifically provides the capability to adjust settings in my watch. This app has an interesting dual personality, though. The app on my smartphone, and this image is a little bit distorted, I apologize for that, shows the icon with the name Galaxy Wearable. But when I run the app and I look at the list of all apps, which I called in another presentation invisible apps, this alternative name appears. Galaxy Watch 4 Manager. Now, I don't know why there are two names for one app, but there you go. Now you know as well. So here, now we begin the history of the false reports of my hard falls. Less than a month after I obtained the smartwatch, shortly before 7 a.m. on December 20 of 2023, I was awakened by an unfamiliar and somewhat ominous sound and a long vibration from my smartwatch. The watch screen told me that my hard fall had been detected and that 9/11 was called. No, I'd not fallen out of bed. I would have considered it a hard fall if I'd fallen out of bed, but apparently all I did was move my arm suddenly in my sleep. The watch used my phone to contact Arlington, Virginia at 9/11. I knew what to expect since my smartphone had pocket dialed 9/11 a few months beforehand. So I got that text asking if there was a real emergency, and I sent a response text saying that I had no emergency. Now, this next part got to be a little more aggravating. My daughter is a registered nurse and is my emergency contact. She lives in the next county to the west of us called Fairfax, Virginia. The watch sent her a text. She sent me a text, and I told her that I had no emergency. But this is where it got interesting. The watch continued to send a text to her every hour. And I realized that eventually, remember we started early in the morning, and it turns out every hour when it did send a text, it first asked if I wanted to stop emergency sharing. I couldn't see that because it was the wintertime and I had on a sweatshirt that covered up my watch. But at about 10 a.m., I did see that, and I responded to the watch question saying I did want to stop emergency sharing. And that ended the hourly text to my daughter. So until that unwelcome experience on December 20, I actually had no idea that hard fall detection was enabled on the smartwatch. So I started researching a couple of issues. How accurate is hard fall detection? And what can I do to minimize sleep interruptions? And today you'll find out what I learned. All right, here's two terms that you can use to amaze your friends in your user group meetings: false positives and false negatives. These are generic terms used widely in industry to describe automatic detections or failures to detect that are not accurate. What I experienced was a false positive. That is, the watch thought I had fallen, when in fact that was not correct. And it happened to me more than once, as it turns out. It happened to me again about a month later, a month and a half later, 4:16 a.m. on February 2nd, 2024. I was not so thoroughly asleep at the time, so I looked at the watch. It asked if I needed help. I answered no. Obviously, I responded a lot faster that second time. It asked if I had really fallen, and I said no. It said, and this is, I think, very interesting, it would report the false alarm to Samsung. Now, maybe it also captured technical logs from the smartwatch to attach to that report. The point is that providing such information helps the watchmaker tweak the behavior of hard fall detection. By my own standard, a false negative, where I really fall and the watch doesn't detect it, is much more important. Fortunately, I have not experienced that. Now, I first learned these terms, false positive and false negatives, because I worked for a while in the field of automatic fingerprint identification. And those two terms also apply there, where you have either a computer determination that a match is very, very likely, and it turns out to be wrong, or the computer determines that there is no match, and that turns out to be wrong. So those terms have a very, very significant meaning in the field of fingerprint identification as well. My online research showed me that both Samsung smartwatches and Apple smartwatches have less than a sterling reputation for hard fall detection. And in both cases, there were significant reports of false positives and false negatives. Most of these were in either on Reddit or in product websites that allow customers to write their experiences. And because of those places, bad news generally travels fast on the internet. So it's very hard to say in terms of a percentage of behaviors that false positives and false negatives and false positives actually dominate experience. I doubt that. There may be a large majority of satisfied users of hard fall detection and reporting, but it's not perfect. On the other hand, some people might have just taken off their watch at night so that it wouldn't falsely detect things occurring overnight. And some might have just never activated hard fall detection, or they might have tried it for a while and decided to turn it off. Now, I'm going to show you what Samsung's website called the Wearables Forum posted on how to report these problems of false positives and false negatives. Here's the website, and they posted specific instructions here on how to use the Galaxy Wearables app to report false positive and false negative experiences with hard fall detection. And note the date. This was about a year and a half before I bought my watch. And this is the URL for this page that I'm showing you at the moment. Probably many of you who would be interested to see research this sort of thing would like to see this as a tiny URL, but there it is. Now, when I first experienced that false positive in December of 2023, I found those instructions a couple of days later, and I found the instructions were out of date, literally. My Galaxy Wearables app literally had no way to report an issue, none. But there's another app on my phone called Samsung Health, and that collects data from the smartwatch and provides various views of that data. Since that app is obviously related to the smartwatch, I tried finding a complaint method through that, and I did. And I'm going to show it to you. So here is the main screen of Samsung Health, and it has 3 dots in the upper right corner. I have circled that for you. Tap those 3 dots. You'll see this menu pop up. In this menu, tap Settings, which I have circled. When you tap that, it provides this information. You're going to leave Samsung Health, and what it wants you to do is click Contact Us, which I've again circled. When you do that, you see this screen, and it includes, under Send Feedback, the word Error Reports. That's what I used. So I've shown you almost the complete tap sequence: main screen, 3 dots, Settings, Contact Us, and Error Reports. That appears in text on the left side, and of course you're seeing the screens here. Okay, it took me 2 days to find that. Samsung, I used it to send whatever logs were available on the smartwatch at the time, 2 days later. And Samsung responded and said the tech data I gathered from my watch did not include any hard fall detection. That says to me that the logs are automatically replaced perhaps every 24 hours. So you have to respond a lot faster than I did. But I don't think I was particularly at fault for taking this long, because frankly, their instructions online said use the Galaxy Wearables app, and that was out of date. And they said to gather the data and send it using the error reports method that I have shown you within 3 to 5 minutes of a false positive. Well, folks, trying to do that at 6 a.m. or 4 a.m. for me is not going to happen in 3 to 5 minutes. But imagine this. You're on the floor, you're hurting because of a false negative, and while you are in pain or on the phone with 911, you have to respond within 3 to 5 minutes and send the data to Samsung. It's not going to happen. All right. So I've told you about the one in December. I told you about the one in February. It happened again later in February. I looked at the watch. It asked if I needed help. I answered no. Once again, it asked if I had really fallen. I answered no. The watch said it would report the false alarm to Samsung. Again, I don't know if it sent what they may call the technical logs from the watch when it reported to Samsung. Happened yet again in March 2024. Now, if you do decide that you want to, or you already have purchased a Samsung watch, I'm going to show you how to avoid false positive hard fall reports while sleeping or at any other time. I considered various ways to avoid that. First of all, I could take off the watch at night, but that defeats the purpose of sleep monitoring. The next two are not entirely practical because you have to remember to undo them in the morning. You disconnect Bluetooth so the watch could not use my phone, or turn off hard fall detection overnight, which you do through the Galaxy Wearable app, and then turn it on in the morning. But it turns out there is a setting within the Galaxy Wearables app called When to Detect Falls. And I'm going to show you how to find it. I was so tickled when I did find it, and this turned out to be the solution that has worked for me for almost a year. You start with the main screen and click on Watch Settings, which is below Watch Faces and Tiles. I circled it there for you, and this menu pops up under Watch Settings, and you want to click on the one I circled in that menu called Safety and Emergency. You see a third screen open, and it has a link called Hard Fall Detection. When you tap that, a hard fall detection screen opens. It has an on-off switch. So if you want to turn it off, that's where you do it. But it also has a link at the bottom called When to Detect Falls. Tap that. And when you do that, you'll see this screen with 3 choices. The default is always. And then there are 2 other choices. The one that I have used is during physical activity. I'm walking around the house. I'm hiking in the woods. And the third choice is only during workouts. Well, I think that's a little too much of a restriction, but clearly lying in bed asleep is not during physical activity. So I have set it to during physical activity, and I've had 0 false positives overnight since I set that 11 months ago. All right. Now, I'm going to go back to the positive side for a minute or two and talk about what I like about the watch. First of all, it has a vivid, colorful watch screen. It's visible like the phone. It's visible except in direct sunlight. It shows the time, the date, and the day of the week. Can show heartbeats per minute. I have a screen online to do that. It can show the current watch battery charge level, and I've developed a very sophisticated screen gadget to do that. It can show the number of steps taken during the current day, which I think is valuable, and I have mine doing that. And you can take it further, and if you happen to be an avid amateur photographer, this is something you might really enjoy. You can design your own custom watch faces using the free Samsung Watch Face Studio software for Windows. I'm going to show you 3 that I designed. I've actually designed more than 60. This first one is based on a shot I took of a hot air balloon that was almost directly over my head at a show in, where was that? A southwestern suburb of Philadelphia. They have hot air balloon shows there every year. And you can see I've got the date, the day of the week, beats per minute. I've got steps, a step count, and a percentage of my step count goal displayed. Hours, minutes, and seconds. And the little gadget on the right, I blew it up here. It gets a little fuzzy when you blow it up this much, but this is a way of displaying how much charge is in the watch battery, and the arc, the blue arc, displays that it's in, the fact that it's blue displays that it's in what I call a normal range. It will turn red if you let it go below 20%. It will turn yellow if you let it go, if you're charging it and it goes above 80%. And here's an example of one that's above 80%. This is a picture I shot in the springtime just across the river from where I live. This is a picture of Japanese cherry blossoms and a reflection in a pond, it might be the tidal pool, of the Washington Monument. This third one is a picture I shot many years ago at an air show in Ocean City, Maryland. It's called Leader of the Flock. And it has pretty much the same gadgets, but here the battery level was very low and it shows as red. If it gets below 15%, that red circle blinks. And likewise, if it gets above 85%, the yellow circle shown in the middle screen, that blinks as well. So it really does a lot to attract your attention. The only complaint I have about doing watch face designs with Watch Face Studio is that it won't let me include sound. I'd love to have a sound that I could sound every couple of seconds when the watch it needs immediate charging or it needs to be taken off the charger immediately, because I think that would make it even more obvious to the watch user. Now, as it turns out, the smartwatch sensors that detect a hard fall have also been built, the accelerometer has also been built into smartphones for more than a decade. And I found a few apps on the Google Play Store that implement smartphone hard fall detection. All of them were very low rated, so I have not tried them. I did not find any apps for that purpose on the Apple App Store. Now, that pretty much covers the topic. I do want to mention something that I'm going to be doing for my local user group, the Potomac Area Technology and Computer Society, which is abbreviated PATACES, on Saturday, 3 days from now. And I will present a brand new topic, connecting computer speakers to a KVM switch. Now, for those of you who don't know what a KVM switch is, we're going to talk about that. Basically, it allows you to use peripherals such as a keyboard, video monitor, and mouse with multiple computers. And also to be presented at that meeting, another presenter will deliver a presentation on the history of Unix. And all members of APC affiliated groups are welcome to attend, and that includes you. It is available by Zoom, and the next slide is going to explain how you can get the Zoom details. Gabe's raised his hand. He's also a member of our user group. I will get to you in a moment, Gabe. The date is Saturday, February 15th. The start time is 1 p.m. ET. You must request Zoom details by Friday at 9 p.m. Through an email. I suggest writing that as soon as possible. Here's the email address. And in the email, include your full name, the city and state where you live, and your user group name. And yes, I've included a QR code. You can scan this QR code with the camera app on your phone and then accept its recommendation to open your email application, and it will write the email for you. You still have to fill in the required info in labeled spaces in that email before you tap send to send it. And here I've put how to save this screen if you wish to do so on your computer, or in this case, the Windows computer, you hold down the Windows key and tap print screen, and that saves it in a subfolder of pictures called screenshots. On a Macintosh, you tap hold down Command and Shift, and then tap the number 3 key, and that saves the screen image with the email address and the QR code to your desktop. So I'm going to wait a few minutes here. The next screen is the end, and then we can take questions and ask Gabe to amplify what I've told you about our user group. All right, I'll stop the sharing. Voila.
Does what you just showed us apply to Android phones other than Samsung?
I believe the answer is yes, although to make use of a smartwatch you would also have to install the Samsung apps on your smartphone.
And you can do that.
You know, I don't own any other brands of Android phones. I have literally not tested it.
Okay, Bill James, that is a question for Mr. Samsung, which is.
Well, I would agree with John. I think you can, if you buy a Samsung watch, you can install the software on your phone, if it's an Android phone. Because the Wear is just an app, so it would be applicable to any Android device that you had. I happen to have an Android phone, and I have a Android watch.
But they're both Samsung, right?
Samsung, yes.
I think it would be just crazy of Samsung not to make those apps available to the public who use other Android phone brands. And they're not crazy.
Oh, John, I do know that you can install if you happen to have an iPhone and you have an Android watch, you can install a application for that watch on your iPhone, although you don't get all the functionality.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
If you are wearing your watch 24/7, how or when do you deal with recharging the battery, since you can't sleep with it on and charge at the same time?
Well, I showed you the I showed you the little gadget I put on the phone screen. In addition, I have a battery monitor app that installs on both the phone and the watch. And that app on the phone lets me know. So I have two different ways to be told when the battery is at a low level. And what do? I pull it off, put it on the charger.
I charge when I'm taking a shower.
Yeah.
Well,
wait till I ask you, Bill.
Yeah, that's not a bad approach. I mean, I take mine off when I get in the shower. But
I'm with Phil too, but I'm not in his shower.
So it's a matter of personal preference, I think. As it turns out, mine requires, because I'm not using the entire range of the battery power on it, I start charging it when it's below 25%, and try to start it before it's below 18%. And I usually charge it up to between 79 and 85%. Because of that, I need to charge it just about every day. But that allows the battery to last a much longer time.
If you are reading your email, you could take your watch off and have your charger right there. You're sitting there, it's charging. You're not going to fall, hopefully you're not going to fall out of your chair. And you could set up times like that where you can do it. I know, like Bill says, when he takes a shower, of course, he takes his watch off, puts it on the counter, I would imagine, and boom.
And it's not necessary to charge it all the way up every time. You know, if you're reading email for 20 minutes, charge it for 20 minutes. If you're in the shower for 25 minutes, charge it for 25 minutes. Those are all good opportunities.
Gabe Goldberg, you're on. Are you?
Hi, thank you. Great presentation, John. I've had at least one and maybe two false positives. The only one whose details I can remember was when I was wrangling the spare tire in the trunk of my car. And I forget exactly what I was doing, but I obviously made an abrupt enough motion to alarm the watch. And it said, "Did you fall? Are you okay? Do you need help?" I said, "No fall, no help. Yes, okay." But you know, I was just happy that the watch was on duty and it was doing what it was supposed to. A reason for wearing the watch 24/7, wearing it while you're sleeping, is it can tell you if you have AFib. And I was at another user group, and a fellow probably in his late 30s, maybe, told the story that his watch woke him up in the middle of the night and told him he had AFib. And I think he called 911 and he went to the hospital and they said he indeed had AFib and the watch might have saved his life. And so that's besides fall detection, AFib detection is an important benefit from watches. And regarding the Apple Watch, a slight correction to what you said, you can in fact use an Apple Watch without an Apple phone. You need an iPhone to set the watch up. But once you've done that, the watch will work. And if the watch has the cellular connection, it will do some, but not all of the functions, including fall detection and summoning help, sending an emergency alert. You will certainly lose a lot of function that the watch has when it's paired to an iPhone, but you can use it without. You just need an iPhone to set it up. And so you might have a buddy system where one person sets up another person's watch. And while you were talking, John, I read a little bit, and one of the things it suggests is for family use. And you might give a kid an Apple Watch, set it up with your iPhone, and now you're the system administrator for the watch, but the kid has the watch for some benefits, including fall detection and probably being found, although that you might not want to tell the kid that it's mapping where the location is.
I do think that kids do have, I mean, remembering my experience in elementary school, hard falls on playing fields. Okay, they play softball or soccer or whatever they kickball, whatever they play, and on playground equipment. So I think there's a lot of situations where kids might end up having a hard fall detected, and yet it's a false report. And besides, they're more flexible at that age and they can bounce back from things that might be really disastrous for people of our age group.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I was more just talking about possible to use the watch without the phone.
Yes.
Rather than you want to know whenever your kid jumped off the monkey bars or whatever they're called this decade.
And I will take it further. Although these didn't come about until after my kids were in high school. If I had very young kids today, I'd be sewing a tile or an air tag into their clothing, because I do want to be able to find them if for some reason they wander off.
A perfect time to charge your watch is when watching television or attending a Wednesday workshop. John, you need to add that to your introduction. Ask the question, are you charging your watch now? I think that would be perfect. Magdalene, you have a comment or a question?
I do, to give everyone a laugh. I discovered the fall detection when I was driving once. I stopped at a traffic light and a happy song came on and I was singing along and I started doing this against the steering wheel and suddenly it said, "Did you fall?" And all I was doing was singing and bouncing against the steering wheel in rhythm to the music.
I got to admit, that sounds like something I'd do.
I did not expect that to happen, but it certainly got my attention. I didn't do that again.
Bill James, you're on. You're on.
I was just going to thank John for his great presentation because apparently I didn't have my fall detection turned on my watch. So I haven't been getting any false positives or any sort.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, I have corrected that problem now. But I did look up using a Galaxy watch with your iPhone, and that's possible.
Cool.
The Galaxy Watch 3, Active, and the Active 2 is compatible with iOS through Bluetooth, and the Galaxy Watch iOS app. So you have to go to the
all right. You didn't find anything about later versions of the Galaxy Watch?
Have them here. The Watch 6 must be paired with Samsung Galaxy smartphone with Android 10 and a minimum of 1.5 gigabits of memory.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you the reason I asked. When they issued the Galaxy Watch 4, they changed the operating system. They had used in the first 3 Galaxy Watches a separate operating system, and now they use something which they have elected to call Wear OS. And that's why I asked the question.
And,
Because
and it says it's not compatible with iOS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyways, there is a help sheet in the Samsung site. So if you're contemplating buying a Samsung watch, you might want to consult that first to make sure that it's compatible with your iPhone.
Yes, and even if you use a non-Samsung Android phone, download the Galaxy Wearable app and the Samsung Health app first. Make sure both of those are on your phone before you buy the watch, because if they're not going to work on your phone, the watch is not going to cooperate with your phone.
Any more questions for John? Any more information that you would like to share about our focus group presentation? You can either raise your hand and talk about it. And I mentioned that if you had any information that you would like shared with them, you could put it in the chat box, and I did not hear from anybody. Do you know how disappointing that is? Amazing. Richard Bradford, you're on.
Yes. Does the watch have the ability for you to initiate an emergency call without having a hard fall?
Okay, the short answer is you can make any phone call from your smartwatch, including an emergency call. Now, there's a qualification for that, and Gabe sort of made reference to that during his comments. Some watches are built with the ability in them to connect to the cell network and act as an independent cell device, including being able to place calls when your phone is nowhere near the watch. My watch does not have that capability. So the only time I can place calls using my watch is when it is connected to my phone, and it places them through Bluetooth into the phone. And what my experience has been, I did try it once out of curiosity. What I found is that the watch by itself doesn't produce enough sound for me to clearly hear the other party, the person I've called. Now, some people use it with earbuds that are connected to the watch by Bluetooth, and then they can hear clearly. But overall, I don't think, for me, for my preferences, using the watch to place calls is very valuable. Since I always have it near and my phone nearby, I place the calls with the phone.
You know, I wasn't thinking so much general calls, but specific emergency call. Because we have a facility here where people are supplied a pendant. If they have an emergency, they press the button on the pendant and it'll initiate the emergency call. So that's a simple to use method to initiate the call, other than.
Oh, now I'm getting a call now. I'm not going to answer it, but it also showed up on my watch, so I could answer it on the watch if I wanted to.
I see people wandering around with their wrists up like this at their cheek, and you'll see they've got their phone with them. And I'm thinking, what in the world are you trying to, and they're just all scrunched up. And it seems so silly when they have their phone. It'll be sitting next to them on the table or something like that. I guess maybe it's show. I have no clue. Thomas Osterdag, you are on. Unmute, please.
Anyway, yes, on an iWatch, there's a crown and a button on the side of it. And if something happens and you fall down and you're still you need help, you can push the big button on the side and it will automatically send an SOS message so that you can initiate without having a hard fall. The other thing is the Apple Watch is able to distinguish between a crash and a hard fall because of how they've set up the accelerometers. And there is at least one app left on the Apple website called Play that allows you access to all of the different sensors that are in the Apple Watch, and you can watch them interact and you can play with them. I've been riding my bike and I hit a pothole, and the pothole hurt in places I won't mention, but anyway, it set off the hard fall detection, and it comes up and it says, did you? And all you have to do is just hit the big button and it knows that you're okay.
And if you press that big button, how do you determine who the message is going to?
It is going to whatever the local 911 service is, and to my nearest to my
Kid.
contact person, emergency contact person.
Thank you. Gabe.
Yeah, I was going to make the point that this fellow just said that on both my phone and my watch, a predefined sequence of button pushes will signal an emergency alert. So both of the devices, even if they don't notice something, I can tell it that I need help. And I was going to comment on something else, and it has escaped. So maybe I'll come back in a moment.
Yeah, welcome to senioritis.
Yeah, thank you. And he looks
It's crowded here, isn't it?
Yeah. Bill, you're on.
Oh, I think John covered it, but I was just going to mention that when you're shopping for watches, in some cases there are two versions. There's the LTE, which is the one that has cellular data, and then there's the Bluetooth version. And depending on which one you get, is a difference in price. But I found that when I receive a phone call, if I have my phone in my pocket or someplace else, it'll ring on my wrist, and so I answer it from there. But my watch, I can hear and speak over it without having to actually hold it up to my face. So they've kind of improved that, I guess, in some of the newer models.
Yeah, that was actually the comment that I was going to make, that if I get a phone call, my phone will buzz on my wrist, on my waist where I've got it on a belt clip, but the watch will also tap me. And it's a lot faster to simply raise my wrist and answer the phone that way than to take the phone off the belt clip, unlock it, and then answer the phone. I never make phone calls on the watch, and I actually hate answering calls on the watch, but I'm not doing it for show. I'm doing it because I can just answer the phone faster by raising my wrist than by dealing with the phone. And also, if I'm in the house, I may not be within reach of my phone, but if a call comes in on my cell phone, the watch will let me answer it and basically answer it and tell somebody to call me back on my other number.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well, Gabe.
Okay, last call for questions about our first presentation, also known as our first focus group. I hope you do the same thing at your meetings, or the John's presentation. Hi, Tom. He's checking out things on his monitor. Any questions from anybody? John Kennedy, what's our next event this month?
In 10 days, two hands, 10 days. Saturday Safari, our first of the year, our quarterly Saturday Safari. So don't expect us next Wednesday, but watch for registration for the Saturday Safari. And then March we'll be back to a normal 3 workshops in the month.
And guess what March is?
Well, what is it?
I'm going to get you guys all backing up sometime, somewhere, somehow. So we have some presentations scheduled on our Saturday Safari. Tom Burt from Sun City Summerlin Computer Club in Las Vegas will be giving his annual tax presentation. We had one last year and people deemed it very good and full of information. And don't forget, from John and me both, if you have a presentation that you have put together and you have given it to your group, think of us. Expand a little bit and get in touch if you're a Linux person and it's that OS. And I noticed she forgot to mention that, by the way, she being Jennifer. I will remind her. And or anything but Linux, me, and let us know. We would really, really appreciate it. And again, it's warts and all. None of us are professionals. It worked yesterday. Gee, I'm sorry it didn't work as well today. That happens even if you are a member of the Speakers Bureau and you give presentations to other groups. You never know. So I'm going to say I really appreciate all the input we got. It will be invaluable for them, and to think that we have had a hand in putting their new entity, whatever, together that is specifically for our age group. And the reason Lisa, the executive director, is not here is she's lobbying to still keep getting money to do this because she's involved in everything that is negative and going on in Washington, D.C. So I hope they don't get shut down because they have an invaluable service. I'll send out links to what I find and use on their website. There's presentation material right there that you can copy and paste and boom, put one together instantly. And of course, we all know you could send some bullet points up to your AI of choice and put a presentation together that way. And if you're like me and you only like one sentence for your bullet points, you add that. If you don't want one sentence, they'll send you a bullet point with 2 or 3 sentences in it that you can read. Okay, so thank you much for being here. And John Kennedy, would you walk us off, please?
Thanks so much. And on behalf of APCUG, we thank you for using one of our benefits for your club's membership to our organization. And have a safe, enjoyable Valentine's Day coming up. And weather is still there. There's another storm going across the upper Midwest. Yesterday's storm came down through Kentucky, Tennessee, over to Washington, and there's another one coming out that way. We're not done. All we can be thankful for is that it seems to be California is now easing up on their fires and stuff. So Thanks everybody for attending, and we'll see you all next time.